It's like the Chinese water torture that is my house right now. Drip, 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 drip. That's the Rangers' offseason. They lost 4 relievers. They've signed 6. Drip, 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 drip. Is it enough? I don't think so. We'll see what Jeff thinks and hear what you think next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. If you're old enough to remember the old TV show, you know that 6 is not enough.
That's right, 8.
8 is enough. Thank you, Jeff. 8 is enough. The Rangers have 6. They've signed 6. Again, they lost 4. They've signed 6. We welcome you into the DLLS studios. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. Me, Jeff Wilson, Elijah Smith over there hanging out with you. We appreciate you being here, Mark. I appreciate your sentiments right off the top, because I feel basically the same way. I'd love to see the Rangers get Kirby Yates and ensure that they'll have an opportunity to get back to the top, at least of the American League West, if not in the top of all of baseball. But Jeff was on the call yesterday with Ross Fenstermaker and then ultimately on with Chris Martin. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of those conversations, Jeff, and the details, and then let's kind of break it down further.
Okay. Ross went first, then Chris. And it was a pretty eye-opening statement that Ross Fenstermaker made when asked, hey, these guys that you've signed, they only have 29 career saves total. You're still going for a closer, right? And he said,
not really.
He said I think I asked. I'd have to look up the phrasing of my question, but did you think is it a necessity, a priority, whatever it was? And he said, I wouldn't say it's necessary per se. If we're, this is Ross speaking. I mean, if they're in the market to upgrade the team with any players, and closer. They will definitely listen if something were to develop here over the next 5 weeks before spring training. To me, it sounds like the Rangers are at a point, maybe financially, where they're like, okay, we can't afford to add a $12 million closer, but we can afford an $8 million closer. So if that doesn't happen, are we happy with what we've put on the roster? Can these guys get it done? Can we make upgrades later in the season at the trade deadline? Things like that. And that is perfectly reasonable.
Of course.
A lot of teams go into their seasons knowing that their bullpen is going to change throughout the year. So I think that they are convinced that, this group will win them ball games and save out ball games, keep games close, things like that. But they probably would like a closer if the right deal would come along.
In the perfect world, right, there would be no CBT and there would be no restriction on the money, and they would absolutely like to get a closer. I mean, and I think that, again, it's not my money. So, and I don't have my boss telling me you can't get to $241 million. And at this point, it seems like they'd be at least getting awfully close to $241 million if they sign, let's say, a Kirby Yates for that magic number you've been talking about, 2 for 21.
Yeah.
Now you're pretty close to it. It's difficult. We're going to talk how much money's left in the next segment, but we'll break that all down a little bit. But it's a difficult thing to do because you do want to leave, as they always say, your powder dry, right? So that you have some room to maneuver, still within the confines of not exceeding that tax during the regular season.
I found the question.
Let's hear it.
Okay, my question was, how do you view the need for a closer? Apparently I said 4 twice. The answer, I don't think it's a specific need per se. I think it's something that we're going to entertain if those opportunities present themselves. But we do feel we have multiple relievers right now in the pen that are capable of closing. We'll let that sort itself out, but I wouldn't say that we are actively looking for any specific role at this point, more just adding quality to the pen if possible.
Yes. Well, that's great. But look, a year ago, they built the back end of the bullpen.
Right.
They built it relatively inexpensively, but they built it. There wasn't a back end of the bullpen that they sort of trusted or really believed in. And they did try Leclerc at the beginning of this year. They did. And it's just not – I just don't think it was in that poor young – he's a great kid. But I just don't think it was in his ultimate mentality to be that sort of just that fiery, killer, really, that you have to be, that mentality when you take the mound at the end of a game. It was just somewhat, different for Jose. He's just such a nice guy. Yeah. That said, Kirby Yates was in the fold. Kirby Yates, who saved 44 games in 2019, right?
41, yeah.
Okay, 41. Over 40 games in 2019, and so you're talking about a guy who had proven he could do it. We're talking about 6 guys right now who have a total of 29 in their career.
Right. And
I mean,
that includes that's the 5 guys they've added who have major league experience. I'm leaving out Luis Curvelo,
right,
who has never pitched above AA. So those 5 guys, I think it's 14 for Chris Martin, 8 for Sean Armstrong, 6 for Jacob Webb, and 1 for Hobie Milner, and none for Garcia. Now, Garcia's only been around a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, it will be, if this is the bullpen they go with, it will be mix and match, but I would think that Chris Martin would be there. And Mark is talking about, and there's some Jon Gray talk here. And I was big on Jon Gray becoming the closer. But the Rangers, and we talked about this the other day or last week, whatever it was, they don't have a lot of innings in their rotation. They can't take a guy who can throw 150 innings and put him in the bullpen. They just can't do it right now, not without signing another starter. So I did ask Ross yesterday, are you guys done shopping for starters? And that's when he gave the answer. We're open to adding anybody who's going to help the club. So, you go out there and is there an $8 million starter that's going to help your team? Yeah, they're an $8 million starter for a reason,
Sure.
Maybe they can find something later in the spring when there are guys like Lorenzen last year who are still holding on and looking for a deal. Maybe they can do that. But as of right now, this is Chris Young or Bruce Bochy. It doesn't get much higher than those guys.
No.
Saying that Jon Gray's needed in the rotation.
And they need him. They do. I mean, we said it. We broke it down the other day. Of the experienced guys, they average 120 or less innings per season in their careers. That's the top 4 guys.
Yeah.
Add them up. Add their numbers up. In their careers, they average 120-ish per. Well, if you only get 120 innings from 5 starters, that's 600. So where are the other 858 innings coming from? They can't come from the bullpen. That's way too much load and work for the bullpen. So you need starters who will give you innings. And so you don't want to take another one of the guys who averaged 120, and I think Jon Gray was right at 121. You don't want to take a guy like that out of the rotation right now. Now, here's the other thing about it, and again, we talk about the closer and the closer mentality a lot. I can't remember if it was in conversations with Boch, you'll remember this, Jeff, or if it was with Chris Woodward, but one of the two in recent years have reminded us that sometimes, the bases loaded with 1 out in the 6th inning in a 1-run game is more high leverage,
sure,
right, than is the ninth inning, even if it's a save situation. So just because these guys, especially Chris Martin, just because they haven't pitched in the ninth inning very often, doesn't mean that high leverage situation is foreign to them.
100%. I mean, that was a big Chris Woodward thing for sure. It was a Jeff Bannister thing, really, and Bruce Bochy recognizes it as well. Honestly, and if a lot of times you see the setup guy come in the eighth and blow through 2, 3, and 4, and then the closer, gets 6, 7, 8, 9, and maybe puts a couple of them on base.
Yeah.
Doesn't really earn the save.
Yeah.
It's like, the guy in the eighth earned the save.
He got a hold.
Yeah, he gets a hold.
He got a hold.
Woohoo! But,
yeah.
No, there are high leverage situations throughout games, and you especially see it in the postseason when pitching changes occur a lot earlier, a lot more often. Biggest situation in the game might be with 2 outs in the fifth.
Sure.
Take out the starter, and he doesn't qualify for the win anymore. But he leaves with the bases loaded and 2 outs, and Aaron Judge coming up, and you bring in David Robertson, let's say, and get the biggest out of the game. So lots of different high leverage situations for sure. So these guys know. But Chris said, I asked him, how do you feel about closing ball games? He did it in Japan. His first year in Japan, he saved 21 games for Hokkaido. The Nippon Ham, the sponsor, Nippon Ham sponsor, Fighters, saved 21 games, but he didn't close the next year, saved only 1 game. And I think his career high is 3 in the majors. But he said, goal's going to be the same. I don't want to give up a run whenever I pitch. So,
sure.
He seems like he's got the demeanor to do it. And but again, I do think that when this market starts to shake loose and prices maybe come down a little bit, and maybe these guys get tired of it and want to say, all right, I just want to know who I'm pitching for. Then maybe the Rangers can sign a guy a little more affordably. And then the trade scenario that people have talked about with Ryan Halsey, who's obviously very, very good.
And knows Mike Maddox very, very well. Yeah,
exactly. Maybe you get the Cardinals to pick up a little bit of his salary. If they truly are going to rebuild and they want to shed salary, try to get as much as they can for this guy, then maybe they end up picking up some of his salary. This is his last year of arbitration, if I'm not mistaken. So he'd be a free agent after next year. So how much, if you're the Rangers, how much you want to give up for a guy that's going to walk after this year? So I don't know. This is tricky stuff. He'll probably make around, I didn't see the projected number, but he's probably going to, I would say 5 to 6, which would again keep the Rangers underneath the threshold.
Yep.
But it would cost them a couple decent prospects.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, maybe they can make the trade with sort of the wink deal, like we're going to re-sign you, right?
Yeah.
But then again, he might want to test that free agency because obviously the Rangers would like to pay him as little as they can, and they're not in the habit of paying a closer what probably has become market value for a closer.
Yeah, and I do think they feel like they have a couple potential guys coming up through the farm system, not quite throwing as hard as Mason Miller, but hard-throwing guys with good stuff. We've mentioned the names before with Emiliano Teodo. What do you do with him? Jack Leiter, even. What do you do with Jack? And then Skylar Hale's another guy that throws the piss out of it. And so we'll see. It's interesting, And then if let's say Helsley signs for ends up making $6 million this year. Well, at the trade deadline, that's going to be about 2.8.
Right.
So you can pick that up.
Yeah,
not
pretty easily.
Have to surrender
huge
as many prospects or as marquee prospects. So it's going to be it could be a work in progress. I do think there's some posturing going on yesterday with what Ross said, but I do think that the Rangers are like, okay, if we can't get the closer for what we need to get him at, then yeah, this collection of relievers will be fine.
Yeah, and in fairness to the owner, and I hear you over there, I hear you, Prophet, hitting that bell, but in fairness to the owner, the year that they won the World Series, they needed to go over that luxury tax, the CBT, in order to get it done. And he did.
Yeah.
And so it wouldn't shock us if in let's say, a Halsey trade that they decided they would go over the luxury tax, right, in order to make sure that they can get it done. Or there may be other trades that would be out there even at the deadline. And let's don't forget, Josh Boers will be back at some point, a couple of months into the season, to help strengthen that bullpen even further. So lots there, lots to chew on, and lots more to talk about, including sort of how much money is left before you do get to that luxury tax, what's possible, and also we'll look back at the career of one of your favorites. It's coming up on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
You know what? It's Empire Today time, our favorite flooring company, one of our favorite sponsors. They've been with us since day one, which we're approaching 5 months now. So Empire Today, $350 off when you go to empiretoday.com/DLLS. They are the experts. They've been around forever here, and you know them, and people trust them, and they really cater to the customer with their shop at home, easy as pie convenience. If you guys get snowed in tomorrow, hell, go take a look if you need some new floors, and use their virtual app, in-home app. You can any room in the house and figure out what the floors are going to look like. Such a good deal, such good people, and so this is what you need to do. You need to schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off discount when they use the promo code DLLS. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/DLLS for details.
He does the fast talk pretty well, doesn't he? You know, Nicole at Game Time and I are like this close to becoming like this. I mean, we're damn near buddies, Nicole and I. And she sent me an email yesterday reminding me of what's happening around the area. And that's one of the great things about using Game Time. I'm serious about this part of it. I really am. That sometimes you just don't know what's out there. And again, I glanced at the email, knowing what I'm looking for these days. And fortunately for us, I'm not in the big sell right now is the Cotton Bowl, which is day after tomorrow. I'm not in the mood or mode to buy tickets to something like that unless it's my team. But I had to check everything else out, right? And so I did. And there's a lot there. Of course, they put the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo in there. Game Time's got tickets to those. Everything that happens over here at the Windspear, Game Time's got ticket to those. Go to gametime.com, use the code DLLS, and get $20 off your first purchase.
I didn't know if I was reading that one or you, so I went on the Game Time app and looked at the Cotton Bowl tickets. Right now, you can spend anywhere from $200 and something to the highest I see is $1,531.
Wow.
I wonder though if that's gonna come down with the weather issues.
Yeah, I thought I saw something on my phone come through that said Cotton Bowl tickets plunging or something like that. Just as the temperature has been doing this week, so it will be interesting to see. You know what? And I'll criticize an owner on you, bigger than you know what, and I have. And Jerry among them. I feel bad for the guy. Every time there's something big at Jerry World, we get frickin' snowpocalypse, I mean, what's going on? I mean, it's like here's how you plan your weather, your weather awareness, as they like to say, is just look at what's at Jerry World and don't plan anything that week, okay? There's a big event out there. Forget it. We're not going to plan anything big that weekend. That Super Bowl was ridiculous, and obviously it's too bad. But I will say this. I know this. Texas fans will show up, and well, they should. You might feel, I don't know, just a little bit bad for people who are trying to fly in, because if you're trying to fly in on Friday, there could be some major cancellation.
Yeah, that's it's unfortunate for Ohio State fans who normally travel very well. Advantage Austin, though I-35 is not going to be a picnic in crappy weather. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, as long as Texas loses, I'll be happy.
Yep. Well, I know you will.
Yeah.
And I'll root for them, especially my upbringing. I always root against Ohio State. You know the saying, "Oh, how I hate Ohio State." So that's what we grew up with in Michigan. So I'll be rooting against the Buckeyes and rooting for the Longhorns. But I think I said on one of Abby's deals when she asked us the questions, that Ohio State team looked pretty good against Oregon.
Yeah,
I think the Longhorns are going to have their hands full, but I'll be rooting for them. A couple of fun nights of football Thursday and Friday, which if we're snowed in, great. Something great to watch.
What's tomorrow?
Notre Dame and Penn State.
Why aren't they playing these on Saturday?
I don't know. I don't get the Thursday, Friday thing either, but I know this from my days in network TV. Thursday night's the big night on TV.
Okay.
So maybe that's why they put that Notre Dame game on Thursday night. I'm not sure. Not sure about that. But anyway, that's definitely a theory. So let's get to this money situation. It's difficult. First of all, the money's not even officially set yet because the arbitration deadline is tomorrow. And so we don't know yet what just a couple of players, Jonah Heim and Leody Taveras, will be making. Although most of the time when you figure these salary, the total salary up, you put a number in there and you project essentially what, and roughly what they're going to make.
Based on years of history and previous cases.
Yes. So it's not, it's not like you've left their number off completely when you add it all up and see where the Rangers rank. Even with that, though, there are varying. I've seen reports today where they're at 230. The luxury tax is 241. The roster resource that's through Fangraphs has the Rangers at 222. That's with Jonah making 4.8 in arbitration and Leody making 4.3 in arbitration. And then they'd still be at 222. It leaves them $19 million to play with. That's probably, if that were true, that's probably about where they'd be comfortable. To have $20 million, to keep $20 million dry, if you will, in order to do things during the season.
That's a lot to have in reserve. I think I've always been a COTS contracts guy, and that's run by Baseball Perspective. I went there, among other places, last night and this morning to take a look, and COTS has them at 233, but they also have Evaldi making $25 million this year, and we know that's 18 because of the signing bonus. So if you want to take away
7,
right? 7. That's the math. There you go.
Yeah.
Take away 7. That's 226. That's enough money to get a closer signed. But again, you got to look at the payroll throughout the season. If you are planning to contend, which the Rangers are, you're going to be busy at the trade deadline. You're going to have to add to your payroll. And Ray Davis seems hell-bent on not going over this thing. He also doesn't seem too keen on deferring money, though I think they did it last year with David Robertson. But I don't know. I just see that I think there's wiggle room. But I do know that they want to, have some handy in June and July for the
absolutely,
for the deadline.
and they'd be fools not to.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to go right up against the budget unless you know for a fact that the owner is willing to exceed it. And I'm sure that the owner has not said, "Yeah, go ahead. I'll like he hasn't given that permission yet." We can tell from the way Chris Young and really previous general managers react to their ability to work with things like that. You can tell that it's one of those things that the notice comes very late. It's like, we really appreciate it, man. We really wanted to do this, and because the owner's generosity or whichever you want to call, we got it done.
And I always said, I'm only on my second general manager, or head guy. John Daniels was the head guy for so long during my career. But I always said when people would be mad at John Daniels and all this stuff for not signing and everything, John Daniels and Chris Young have a boss.
They do.
They have a boss. They have to listen to Ray Davis, and if he says don't spend that money, then you got to listen to your boss. But they do generally history has shown that if the Rangers need a player, they can present the case, and Davis will generally okay it. He'll green flag it. So we'll see what happens here. Like I've been saying, but it is interesting when you're it's not a salary cap. The collective bargaining tax,
unless the owner makes it one.
Competitive balance tax.
Yeah,
but it acts like a salary cap. That's why the players hate it. That's one reason it's always a bone of contention in new labor negotiations. So but it is at the point now where it's getting higher and higher. I mean, 241 is a pretty big damn number.
It is.
And the Rangers are right up against it though. When you have Jacob deGrom's getting paid $40 million this year, and you have the Corey Seager at 32.5. That's a lot of money, right? I mean, that's 25% of that's more than 25% of 241. So
2 players. Yep.
Yeah. So it's and you have to have these great players to win.
Yep.
You have to have them, and so it's finding the balance.
Yeah, it is, and it's a difficult balance to strike. And like we said, credit to Ray Davis. He's done it. He hasn't had a ton of opportunities to do it, but he's done it in the past, and it wouldn't shock me if he does it again this year. And by then, look, right now, everything about, and we got to next up on the plan, off-season plan, is to figure out what TV's happening. We'll be working on that feverishly over the shut-in days. But in any event, by the trade deadline, right now, everything about the TV deal that they present to Ray Davis is theoretical, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's like, we think we're going to do this, and we think we're going to do that, and we think we're going to make a lot of money, and we're sure. Yeah, no, we're sure, right? I mean, but how else can you present it? It's not like you have any previous data, we know, we've told you this before, but if you're new to the program, we know that the Rangers are going to have 3 components to their television contract. They're going to have an over-the-air partner. They're in not only this market, but ideally they're hoping for about 31 or 35 different markets where they'll have an over-the-air partner. They'll have the linear component, which is cable and satellite TV, and they'll have the digital component, which is streaming. So when you combine all those things, there's an opportunity to make a great deal of money, as much money or more than Bally and Fox before them were paying the Rangers. But again, right now, it's like, yep, we think we can make that. Do you know we can make it? Well, we don't know, but we're pretty sure we can,
Yeah.
And so anyway, those are all things that could change, right? By the time we get to the trade deadline, it'll be like, oh, I'll be darned. Yeah. We are making that, or we're beginning to see the fruits of all the labor of the offseason of getting this TV package together, in which case you might feel a little more free to spend and go over that CBT. Because, again, the thing is, if you go over it multiple years in a row, and I don't think the Rangers did last year, right? They did last year, too. So the third year, I know it becomes more of a penalty, right?
Each year it gets worse.
Each year it gets worse. Each year it gets worse. So, you'd like not to, but, man, if you're this close to winning the World Series, or that's the one guy you need, I still think they would, especially if they know that money is coming in.
Well, I think they saw the financial benefit of the World Series. I mean, from merchandise to ticket sales, and then what follows with ticket sales, got to pay for parking, got to pay for
concessions.
Beers.
Yep.
So there's no doubt that the World Series is a money maker. All right.
Yeah.
So I think that at that point it makes business sense to do it. On the TV deal, I mean, I think the stuff you can count on is sponsorship dollars.
Of course.
Right. But then beyond that, the subscriptions and all
there's
that stuff.
There's going to be downloads. There's going to be, they're going to, I know eventually in the digital world, I know they literally want to make it so that you can pay, a much smaller amount and just watch the 9th inning of a game you might be very interested in late because you may have gone to sleeper and put a little money on it or whatever. I mean, they want to have this thing widespread and the ability for you to not only maybe spend whatever you want, but them to have more streams of revenue, like that young person who is sitting in Vegas going, holy crap, the Rangers are tied. I got to look at this game.
Yeah.
And they pay $5 to watch the end of the game.
Yeah, and it's unprecedented.
Yes.
There's no data.
No.
The Rangers can't say, hey,
there's no comp.
Hey, Mets, how did your streaming service go? Well, nobody has it yet.
No, exactly. So that's one of the things that the question marks that loom over this thing as we try to figure out how much money they have to spend, how much money they will spend. More coming up, though, as we talk about a guy who we loved. We loved when we covered him, and he's actually a bit of a flashpoint these days. But we're still going to talk about the great career of our friend Derek Holland as the DLLS Rangers podcast continues.
Oh boy, I'm not paying attention to this part.
Oh,
Oh man, it's Shady Rays time.
Yeah, okay.
You look outside. If you didn't know any better, you'd think it was 110 degrees.
Yeah. I say that we're gonna look.
It's definite sunglass weather.
It's sunglass weather, and I say we're gonna need. It's this sunny, and we're gonna be like up to here in snow tomorrow. It's weird.
That's what it sounds like.
And these are good in the snow. If it's bright in the snow, by the way.
Oh yeah.
You know that from Colorado.
Absolutely.
The snow reflects it. So.
Yeah. So get Shady Rays. I mean, honestly, it's like they just give them to you because it's 35% off when you use the code DLLS. Okay, they're a very affordable price range. They're not like I don't know, Maui gyms or whatever, and they're durable as heck. John's tried to break his. I can't tell you how many times. It's kind of getting to be a problem, honestly. But they keep surviving. They keep surviving. So if you are in the market for sunglasses, ShadyRays.com, use the code DLLS for 35% off.
And if you're in the market for neon, which you may not know you're in the market for neon until we remind you how cool neon is. And this isn't neon because it's LED, so you don't have some gaseous, thing that if, the grandchild comes up and hits it with their wiffle ball bat, right? And the freaking gas explodes and neon. No, it's LED, but it looks like neon. It's such a cool background. Saturday Neon. They're affiliated with 50 colleges and universities right now. They'll also make you a personal one that you can have in the man cave or you can have anywhere. Neon just looks so cool. Tons of colors. It's a great product. A couple of college buddies started it, and they have really got it going well. So check out SaturdayNeon.com, and if you use the code DLLS, you get 10% off at SaturdayNeon.com. All right, Derek Holland. Man, he was fun to cover.
Yeah.
He really was.
He was when the Rangers were rebuilding in 2007, along comes a guy drafted in the 26th round from Wallace State in Alabama. Rangers took him, draft and follow. He comes in, all of a sudden he's throwing 97, makes the majors in 2009. The Rangers dangled him in a trade because they were in it. With the Blue Jays, but Roy Halladay turned it down. So they get stuck with Derek Holland, and it turned out to work out pretty good.
Yep.
There were in 10, he dealt with an early season injury, was in the bullpen in the postseason, made a very critical appearance in Game 3 of that series, the ALCS at Yankee Stadium, game the Rangers won, and then 11, 12, 13. He won 16, 12, and 10 games. Game 4 of the World Series that year in 11, arguably the best pitched postseason game in Rangers history. 8 1/3 scoreless, 2 hits. The knee injury, the phantom knee injury, whether he tripped over his dog, Wrigley, or whether he was out ice skating and hurt his knee. However the story goes, it really kind of derailed him. Although when he came back in 14, he was great at the end of 14. Just didn't materialize after that. Bounced around a little bit after his deal with the Rangers ended. Ends up making a lot of money, which is good. And he's become such a charitable guy. He has his own charity which supports that's called the 60 Feet 6 Foundation, which supports children's doesn't support it, tries to find a cure for children's cancer. He's been a fixture and involved heavily with Do It for Durit since our inception. Just a guy with a big heart, and did some pretty good things in a baseball uniform. So, I'd say I'm going to miss him, but he's been gone from the Rangers for so long, but he still lives in the area. I see him a lot. So, just kind of the end though for Derek.
Yeah, and like so many guys, look, the reality is that Derek was clinging to a hope, right?
Yeah.
As he continued to have surgeries, he was clinging to a hope that maybe he'd find that magic again, and it was magic. And he said it in his if you saw some of his social media posts about ending the career, is like, man, just a kid out of Newark, Ohio. And I think he never lost sight of the fact that he is just that kid that was kind of good growing up, but not that great. That's how you end up at Wallace State or whatever we're talking about, not that good. And yet then all of a sudden it was magic because he could throw 97 from the left side. So anyway, it was, I'm sure, a little bit of that, hoping that maybe some of that magic, he probably didn't figure he was going to throw 97 but some of that magic returns in some form or fashion, and he could continue his career. But wisely, he has finally called it a career, and some of those moments that we remember, like that Game 4 in that World Series. I mean, there were some really good pitching performances in Rangers postseason, history at that point, and to be better than any of those, any of the Cliff Lee games, right? Any of the Colby Lewis games. Yeah. I mean, that was special. That Game 4 of the World Series.
Yeah, and the stage it was on and where the series was at that point, the Rangers were down 2-1. It was a must-win game. I mean, they absolutely had to win the game. They won that. They won Game 5, and we know what happened after that. But Derek was right there in the middle of it. He would have been a huge reason why they won it. He was a huge reason why they were there. That was the year that nobody went on the injured list. He threw 4 shutouts that year, and one of them I believe was in Toronto, or very famously when Wash went out to the mound and just let him have it, and Derek responded, man. And so pretty cool deal. Glad he's still in our area. He's helping out with Northlake College now, trying to teach them something. He'd like to be a broadcaster. I know he had an opportunity. Wash helped him out, helped him get an opportunity to coach last year with the Angels in their farm system, but Derek wanted to give it one more try. He was coming back from Tommy John surgery, got hurt again, so I think that finally did it. But good for him, and good for us that he's still in our area.
Yeah, it is, and he's done a fair amount of work on 105.3 The Fan in the World Series run. He jumped on with my buddy Bill Jones over there at Channel 11 and did some analyst work for them during the World Series. So I know maybe the whole playoffs, but I know during the World Series. So anyway, really good dude, and his relationship with Wash was so special because, again, like Elvis, right?
Yeah.
Wash nurtured this kid.
For sure.
And we see when Wash, when we talk to him at the winter meetings, when he feels like these kids, like he gets them as a quote unquote, a baseball baby, right? This is his kid. And it would be so fun every once in a while when it's not time to pull him. It's just time for a mound visit. Which is normally a Mike Maddox job.
Yeah.
And there were so many times when we'd see Wash go, I got this.
Yeah.
And he'd go and he'd do the mound visit. It
Right.
wasn't to pull him. He'd just go out there and, sometimes I remember him just patting him on the chest and encouraging him. We all remember the Toronto game where he just went out and wore him out. But I thought that their relationship, and then again, not surprising that Wash was trying to help him get on in a coaching capacity. I'm not sure Derek has he's too ADHD, right? The attention span, that's the word I'm looking for, to be a coach, because those guys grind, and I just think you have to be so patient to be a coach.
Yeah, well, one thing that there was a huge misconception about Derek. Derek Holland was a hard worker. Derek Holland worked hard.
Sure.
When he had there were always the times like when he did the major league haircut, and then went out and pitched his ass off, and got that rubbed Jeff Bannister the wrong way. So the next day, Derek's got a crew cut. Derek. But Derek always worked hard. You can ask any of his teammates.
Yeah.
The guy worked his tail off. And you look at him now, he posts videos of him in the gym and everything. Guy's in
he's in great
shape.
shape. Yeah, he's in great shape.
Last time I saw him at the Do It for Dirt event in early November, he's just
jacked,
put together, man.
Yeah.
So he's that needs to be cleared up immediately. He did not take anything for granted. He did not cut any corners. Derek Holland worked hard.
One time when we were on a trip in New York, he went down to the MLB offices. He and I don't remember who the reliever was. Maybe it was a young starter. They did Dumb and Dumber.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they dressed up in light blue and orange tuxedos and walked around the streets of New York, and we did a feature on it. And and of course his Harry Carey impersonation was legendary and then annoying. I remember maybe during the 11 World Series, Fox mic'd him up during the game.
Oh.
And then asked him to do the Harry Carey, and I was sitting there with Macklemore, and he's like, "Don't do it, man, don't do it." And he did it. Yeah, he did it. So again, give the guy a national audience. You got to throw your Harry Carey out there. Especially he did it pretty well.
Yeah, and some people called it his impersonation of Will Ferrell's impersonation.
That's
of
right.
Harry
That's
Carey.
right.
And that's not
It's
wrong.
okay. Yeah.
Justin Grimm might have been the
Grimm.
guy.
It was Grimm.
And,
Thank you. It was Grimm.
But he just likes that. He does an Arnold Schwarzenegger thing. When he was with the Giants, he and Hunter Pence did like a wrestling promo where they like greased up their bodies and were shouting in the I think it was to get somebody into the All-Star game or something like that. And loved his teammates. Was always there, and Derek was also hard on himself. If he had a rough start, he had a bad start in the postseason, it just killed him. It just ate him alive. The public persona and the baseball player were not one and the same.
I remember
Derek went after it.
One of his very first starts, and it was I think an emergency type start in Fenway. And I was on the trip with the Rangers, and I had scheduled to go talk to his parents in the third inning and somewhere in Fenway as a sideline reporter. And he gave up 12 in the first two. Oh, no. So we spared them having to talk about it. But it's Fenway Park, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Here's this kid from Newark, Ohio, trying to, again, those were good Red Sox teams still. So here's this kid from Newark, Ohio, trying to, get out Big Papi in Fenway Park.
Yeah, that's a pretty daunting task. But he, and so, really, you're kind of looking back at these first World Series teams. All these guys are retired.
Yeah.
Derek and Kinsler and Nelson Cruz and Michael Young, of course. Beltre just went into the Hall of Fame. He was only on one of those World Series teams. But nevertheless, you see these guys who are making appearances, as Rangers alumni. It's like, God dang it. If they're getting old, I'm really getting old.
You want to feel old. I saw, and God bless Bill Bates. We're going Cowboys for just a second. Bill Bates, they honored him at the Cowboys game this weekend, and he's moved away, so I did not realize he's another one of these just ridiculously horrible victims of the CTE. And he is. And so all of the team flew in, a bunch of his teammates. And anyway, there was a picture with Bill and a bunch of the guys I covered on a daily basis and I'm like, who's that old man? Who's that old man?
Yeah.
Oh, that's John Gieseck. God, does he look old? And then I'm thinking, what are they saying about me?
Exactly.
Yeah. God, is that Radigan? He looks old. I am old. So are you, John Gieseck. So anyway, and John still lives in the area too, by the way. I just haven't seen him, so it surprised me. So anyway, we get old. That sucks.
We do.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. All right, more coming. We got our cleanup segment as we have a lot to talk about once again, including a future Hall of Famer finding a new home next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. All right, your merch is visible, so you do the merch.
Okay. Yeah, check out. I gotta have the microphone by my mouth though. Check out this here sweatshirt, which you can get at store.allcitynetwork.com. This is my second sweatshirt. It's the newest to the collection, as I believe it was a Christmas present. It's the camo edition of the sweatshirt, and I'm usually not a big camo guy, but I kind of like it.
It's a subtle camo.
It is a
though.
subtle camo.
You know, on a camera, you can almost not even tell. If you look close, you can.
Yeah,
But
it looks like some stains or something.
Yeah,
but it's camo, and it's sharp and it's comfortable. And I can tell you right now, sitting here in front of the lights and next to John and with the Prophet over there, I'm a little warm.
Yeah,
I'm a little warm. So, but I think I have 13 T-shirts from store.allcitynetwork.com. 12, mostly Rangers, 2 TCU, and now a Denver Broncos shirt.
Is that a T-shirt?
It is a T-shirt.
Yep.
It's a Bo Nix T-shirt.
Nice.
Yeah.
Having a great year.
Yeah, he's going to go up to Buffalo this weekend and surprise some people, I think.
I think not.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then if you become a diehard, you get a free T-shirt.
Yes,
right,
you
John?
do. Yes, you do, which is one of the reasons, one of the many you should become a diehard. The other reason is that so much of what we write here, and it's not just Jeff, and I'll be doing some writing myself, but what is written here is most often behind the paywall. Now, today
was free.
Jeff threw you a bone. Yeah, today was free, and that's a beautiful thing. And if you read the free stuff today, you realize what a good job he does. So it's so worth it because, again, you're going to pay no matter who you're trying to get this information from. The Athletic is here, although they don't really have a Rangers beat.
They do not.
The Dallas Morning News, you think you're going to get it for $79.99 a year? No, not even close. That's not even a quarter, I don't think. I think it's more than that per quarter. So anyway, it's worth it. Make sure you become a diehard today and get all that content and a free shirt.
That's right.
All right, let's clean up. First of all, a couple of questions that are there. Natalie might have been late. Who will close if the Rangers don't get one? We think at this point, right, it's probably would be Chris Martin.
Yeah, I did, Natalie, ask about how Mark Church might figure into all of this.
Yeah.
And Ross said, well, knowing that Mark Church has one career appearance, said, we got to get him acclimated to the big leagues before we throw him into the ninth inning. But Mark Church has got stuff, man, and he showed it during the fall league.
Fall league, yep.
He missed so much time during the season with a little lat injury that ended up costing him 2 months. Mark Church, when we're talking about closers, and I know that we've thrown out some, he's absolutely 100% in that mix of guys that could close games along with perhaps Teodo, perhaps Jack Leiter, Skylar Hales. Mark Church is probably at the top of that list, if we're being honest.
Yep, and Mike brings up a good point where he says, hey, CY's smart. They're still going to have a closer, and that's one of the things we haven't necessarily mentioned on air yet, but we talked about upstairs before the show, is this, I don't want to say a smokescreen, but is this just part of the play, right? That they're saying, no, we don't need a closer. We're okay.
Yeah,
right?
Well, and again, it's like they reach a point where it's like, okay, have we done enough if we can't get the guy we want? Then sure. These Chris Martin, if you look at his numbers, even going back to his first season with the Rangers where he had I think a 4.5 ERA, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
He and again, he doesn't walk anybody. He throws at least 4 pitches. He mixes in a sinker sometimes that has a lot of swing and miss that you don't normally see. He can pitch, man, and it still comes out hot. So hey, sure, why not?
Give it a
not
shot.
Give him
Absolutely.
He seems to have the demeanor. I was doing photo searches and for the stories I'd written the last couple of days, and there are stories of him fired up, screaming and yelling. He's a competitor, and competitors tend to do well in that spot. So, I do think that something else another shoe is going to drop, Natalie. I really believe that, and everybody else who's lamenting the fact that they haven't signed a closer yet, I think something else is going to happen. But if it doesn't happen by opening day, it may happen by July 31st. Sure. But something else is going to happen.
All right. Elsewhere in the world of baseball, the Sasaki saga continues, and there's just one report out there is all I saw today. J.P. Morosi suggesting there's an eighth team. There's a mystery team involved.
Good.
So whatever, I mean, like you said yesterday, I think nobody knows for sure.
Yeah.
We're only 16 days away from knowing for sure. 15 days from the actual deadline day. So on the 16th day for sure we'll know, and probably a little bit before that. Sometime between now and the 23rd, we're going to know everything we need to know about Sasaki. The Rangers, have had one meeting. If they get another, we'll be awfully happy about that because it will probably be in Arlington. Now,
two points on that.
Yes.
Not to cut you off, but Joel Wolf, the agent, during his conference call last week, did say that there was a possibility that Sasaki would want to meet with other clubs on a preliminary route before going in. So Morosi, that report might have something to it there. And then I did ask, or Kennedy asked Ross yesterday about where things stand with Sasaki, and he said same as the last time we talked about it. We're just awaiting further instructions from the Sasaki camp. So it's got to be happening soon. By God.
It does. It does indeed. And by the way, PDX Cowboy fan, give me Vrabel out of those two, but Vrabel or Gruden, But again, I think McCarthy's staying, by the way. I think by denying him the opportunity to talk with the Bears, Jerry's saying, oh, wow, this guy is popular. Okay, good. People like him. I'll keep him. But if I'm forced to choose, I'll take Vrabel.
I do like the Frank Caliendo, Jon Gruden.
Oh, that's the greatest.
It's so good.
Just the greatest.
It's so good.
Yeah. So, and then anyway, this Hall of Famer we were talking about, Justin Verlander, you may have heard, has signed with the San Francisco Giants a one-year deal for $15 million, which I think is in the realm of what we thought the Verlanders and the Scherzers were going to have to sign for. The question was, when you've been making $40 or $43 or $45 million a year, are you able to justify it in your own mind? You got a ton of money. Are you able to justify, I'm going to go pitch for a third, roughly, of what I was making last year? And clearly Verlander can.
Well, they're smart enough to know. Nobody's going to give them half. So Scherzer is the next one. I mean, that's a two player group. Scherzer's next. There was some talk on my Twitter notifications about making Scherzer the closer. No chance. He's not durable enough, and plus, I don't think he really wants to do it.
No.
So I think Max is at a point. I think he's healthy. His intention was to pitch this year at the end of last year. The nerve issue is something he was trying to figure out. He thinks he did with a lower arm slot. But anyway, I do not think that Max Scherzer as a closer is a possibility.
No, I don't either. And again, he's obviously, sort of the market is set for the 40-somethings, right?
Yeah.
So he's got to be realistic about it. And who knows? It's funny. I think I'd sign Verlander before I'd sign Scherzer too, even though Verlander's got a longer, I think more voluminous history of injuries throughout his career than Scherzer. He's been very durable throughout his career, Scherzer, but these recent ones have just all been sort of like your body's breaking down, dude. That's
right.
Kind of what they feel like.
Yeah, I mean, these are wear and tear injuries.
And that's for Scherzer, I mean. Yeah.
For Scherzer. I mean, a herniated disc, which I've had, is from wear and tear.
Wear and tear. Yeah.
And,
so
the nerve issue, if it's in the chest shoulder region, generally that's in the realm of thoracic outlet syndrome, which is a compression of your ribs. Now young people have it. Cody Bradford, for instance, has it. So I just think it's he's definitely very clearly on the downhill side of his career, but he wants to give it one more go, and I don't blame him.
No, I don't either. Where else can you, if he can make $15 million, again, even if he only makes 3 starts, good for me.
Yeah, hey,
made $15 million. Good. It's not like he'll work hard all year. I promise you. Rehab, surgery,
he worked
whatever.
so hard.
Yeah, all of them. And so would Verlander. Even if Verlander's at a point where he can't make all the starts they want to make. I mean, we saw enough, not that he's in this realm age-wise, but we saw exactly what, the cynic out there wants to say, these guys don't care if they pitch, they just want the money. Not true. They all care, and where it became more crystal clear to us than ever before was when Jacob deGrom had to face us, having just heard he was going to have Tommy John surgery again.
Yeah, that was a tough one, and they care so much, and he was in a situation where he had left New York and caught some shit for it, and because he said, I want to go where I can win a World Series, and so he gets hurt, and I just think all of it together really hit him and was painful, but lo and behold, won the World Series. So
he did it.
I just going back to our talk of the past few days, I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to seeing Jacob deGrom pitch.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Brian Matusz has died, and this is I have not seen. I don't know if you have, Jeff, any even hint at the cause of death. The man, 37 years old.
Yeah,
and
that's too bad.
Oh gosh, that's just tragic. And I remember him very well from his days in Baltimore in that 2012, was it? Wild card game against the Rangers. He came in and shut him down. I mean, he was the guy who started his career as a starting pitcher and had a mild modicum of success early, but then faded quickly. But then he really found his footing in Baltimore for the most part, spent most of his career there as a relief pitcher.
Yeah, the spelling on that one's tricky.
It is.
Matusz. And I remember Ron Washington always struggled with that one. Matusz. Ron always struggled with that one. And I do too. I mean, I saw it yesterday and saw the news, and I had to I think I might have remembered Wash and then said, oh yeah, it's not Matusz, it's Matusz. But yeah, that's terrible. And I don't want to jump to any conclusions here, but a lot of times when cause of death isn't immediately announced, it's a bad situation.
In some ways, it's even more tragic in those situations. Yes. You're right. So that's news for today. Also news, the Rangers Caravan is being delayed because of the winter weather in the forecast.
Yeah. So the Thursday kickoff at the Fan, which is not far from us, is now going to be Monday. The Friday deal in Longview has been canceled, and so they have added a January 26th stop in Cleburne at the La Moderna field out there where the Railroaders play. And Pete Conviglia is going to be there because he's their manager. But some other guests will likely be announced at a later date. All right, we got 2 minutes to answer some questions. Kenny, Jeff, do you think there are contingency plans to offload Gray's salary if they somehow get Roki? Keep in mind, Kenny, that Sasaki comes from a different salary pool, so he comes from the international budget and will only make the league minimum this year. So don't have to worry about that one. And then Natalie, will Leiter be here beyond this year if he keeps struggling? I really don't think he struggled last year. I know that's an unpopular opinion. He was fantastic in the minor leagues, then came to the major leagues for the first time and got knocked around a little bit. But he also had times where he pitched really well. I don't think you're going to give up on him. The number 2 overall pick in a draft, you really don't want to give up on him. And now if you see him riding high and you think it's not real and you can trade him with his value high, then maybe you do that. But I think that the next step for Jack is he moved to the bullpen if another subpar year or subpar results in the major leagues occurs.
Yep. So we love the questions. We love the chat and the chatter, and we appreciate it coming from you each and every day. One other thing I forgot to, I don't know if Prophet has this handy, and if he doesn't, picture it, but Adolis and Leote were at the game last night, the Mavericks game last night. They were sitting side by side watching LeBron and the Lakers take on the Mavs, which, by the way, the Mavs won that game. So pretty cool deal last night to have, a couple of that. Somebody on one of the social medias said, now this is a crossover, man. This is a killer crossover. Of course, an NBA term, but crossing over from baseball to basketball, and fun to see those guys out there.
We got to go long. We got to answer Kenny's.
Oh, all right, let's do that. So, hey, we love you. We want you to love us, like us, subscribe to us, and we're here every day at noon. And now we get to Kenny's question.
So Kenny clarified himself. He clearly knew, Kenny's a smart guy, that Sasaki didn't come from the main salary pool and count.
Yeah.
Would they think that they have enough starting pitchers on board to trade Gray?
See, I see.
In theory you'd think so, but Sasaki is not
a
guy
product.
who's going to throw 200 innings.
No.
I mean, he might only throw 120 this season. I think that the Rangers are short on innings now. I don't think that they're going to be moving Jon Gray. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think. I think, if they were going to move Jon Gray, they would be talking about a guy like Jack Flaherty.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a favorable comp, something like that, somewhere in the same salary range. Flaherty will probably be a little more, but and then Steve, here's an idea: trade Montgomery with Gray, and have Arizona eat $10 million. Now that one seems actually more
doable,
more doable to me.
Yeah.
But the Diamondbacks just signed Corbin Burns. They've got a pretty salty rotation.
They got a salty rotation.
They've got four really good guys. Is Brandon Pfaadt would be the fifth? Is that how you say it? Pfaadt. Anyway,
ask Wash.
No, let's not. But that's not a bad idea. The Rangers really did have interest earlier in the offseason in acquiring Montgomery. I think they might have to. Well, let's see. What would the math be? The difference between the salaries would be 8. If you traded salary for salary, because Montgomery's making 22.5, so there'd be an $8 million surplus. So yeah, if the Diamondbacks could eat 10 of the 22, if they really want to get rid of him that bad, sure.
Get him for free.
What about getting Trevor Bauer? Never going to happen with Chris Young.
No. Not a viable option, but all good questions, no doubt about that. We appreciate them, as always. Glad we could get to them, and glad we could hang out with you. We may both be, all three of us, the Prophet too, all be from our houses tomorrow as this winter weather bears down on North Texas. But one way or the other, we'll be with you talking baseball and the Hot Stove League on the DLLS Rangers podcast tomorrow at noon.
We all silly like the mayor.